One of our favorite things to talk about in Canada is the extraordinary cost of real estate, especially in Toronto and Vancouver. But who says you need to be locked into a mortgage or even a location? Nick True from MapleMoney lives full-time in an RV, and it's not just him. His wife and 4 pets are also packed into the Airstream. Keep listening for the pros and cons of how he makes it all work. Welcome to the MapleMoney Show, the podcast that helps Canadians improve their personal finances to create lasting financial freedom. Are you curious about robo-advisors but have some questions? Thanks to our sponsor, Wealthsimple, you can book a 15-minute no-obligation call with an experienced portfolio manager. To book your call, simply head over to maplemoney.com/wealthsimplechat. That's maplemoney.com/wealthsimplechat. Now here's Nick. Hey, Nick. Welcome to the Maple Money Show.
Hey, Tom. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you. There's, I love finding people with unique ways of handling finances and lifestyle. And one thing that you do that I think's rather unique is that you live in an Airstream, right?
Yeah, we do. It's about 180 square foot, and me, my wife, and we have 4 pets in here. So we keep it nice and tidy.
You have 4 pets. I knew you had a dog or two. I didn't realize you were up to 4 pets.
Yeah. 2 cats, 2 dogs, man. We got a full house.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I want to get back to that. But before, let's start back at the beginning about sort of what made you first decide to make this choice. How was your living situation prior to that, and what made you decide to make this plunge into RV life?
Yeah, so my wife and I are originally from southeastern Tennessee, down in the States. And at the time, we kind of first dreamed up this whole thing. I was working full-time as a mechanical engineer, and my wife was finishing up graduate school as a physical therapist. And one of the things that's kind of neat about the medical field, especially in the States, I'm not sure about Canada, but in the medical field in the States, we have a lot of positions that will take travel positions. So you can actually take a job as a traveling doctor or a traveling physical therapist or a traveling nurse. You work for basically an agency, and then they set you up at hospitals in need for 3 months at a time.
Okay.
So we found out about that, and my wife was about to finish her degree, and it was like, hey, like this is kind of interesting. If I could figure out a way to work remotely, and she could take a job as a travel PT, we could just travel for a few years before we have kids and kind of, go around and just really explore the country and get that out of our bones. So we're big outdoors people, big camping people. So all that was really appealing. So that was kind of how the initial idea came to us.
Were you living in a house or an apartment at that time?
Yeah, we just had an apartment. So for us, it was actually pretty easy in terms of we didn't have to sell a home. We had to downsize a ton, because we had a 1,200 square foot apartment, 2-bedroom. We had a lot of stuff still. But yeah, just an apartment.
Yeah, I've said on the show before, but I have a ton of stuff from when I was spending way too much in college, and it's still sticking with me now. And I need to get rid of it. But I couldn't imagine downsizing that much. I can't imagine living in a smaller house, let alone going to an RV. So how much do you think you downsize to? Like what are your current possessions?
Okay, so one thing I would say is that just like with anything, you want to start small. Like with us, we've probably downsized. When I say downsized, I mean like rounds of getting rid and purging. We've probably done that like 4 times now. And we've been in the RV already for almost 2 years. So when we first did it, we ended up we have a storage unit, and we put a 10 by 10 storage unit together. And we basically shoved as much furniture in there as we could that we think we might want one day when we have a home. There's a few antiques and kind of family heirloom furniture that we want. So we went from 1,200 square foot, couches and TV stands and kitchen table. And we had all this stuff. We had an office with a bunch of bookshelves and books, down to a 10 by 10 storage unit. And then basically everything we could fit in the Airstream. I haven't counted our clothes, for example, but I think just off the top of my head, I probably have maybe 15 shirts. And then I know I only have 2 pair of pants and handful of shoes, and my wife's got a little more than I do. Um, but she still, she still has downsized significantly. But yeah, when we first did it, we basically filled up the Airstream, and then we filled up the truck and her car.
Mhm.
And then since that time, we've realized, we really don't need that. We really don't need that. So we've done multiple rounds trying to get the vehicles empty to where really everything is just inside the Airstream.
Yeah, that's great. And really, like you talked about downsizing clothes, and I have way more t-shirts than I could count. But basically, what you said is you have 2 weeks worth of clothing, right? Like
Yep.
you can get by on that. So well, why does anyone have any more? I don't know. I have so many shirts. I like I said, I don't think I could count. But I like this idea of downsizing. Anyways, I have no plans to live in an RV, but still, if you have too much stuff, it just sort of weighs you down, and you maybe run out of those options. Maybe I'm not going to go live in an RV, but maybe we want to downsize our house once we realize we don't need to store all this stuff, right?
Well, the nice thing about it is like you just enjoy your stuff so much more.
Mhm.
So literally every pair of pants I own is like a favorite pair of pants. Like it fits great. I really like it. I want to wear it. I don't have any pair of pants or t-shirts that are like really at the bottom because I don't actually like them. Like I can pull anything out and know that I really like this thing. So that to me is like the biggest pro of downsizing is you kind of gain a certain level of efficiency over your stuff and you love all of it.
So you decide what to keep based on what you love, but how do you say you want to go buy a new pair of pants and
Yeah.
they're not so great? Do you just immediately return them, or do you kind of have to make a odd decision there about
Yeah,
what
that's
you're going
tough.
to keep?
There's definitely some level of we know what we can basically have maximally.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to buy new clothes, I've got to be able to basically trade something else out. Um, so really the two decisions that I get to make are, okay, number one, obviously, is this in the budget? Because this is a money show and I'm always going to ask that question.
Yeah.
And then number two, it's do I like this more than what I currently have?
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll take a test run, right? So I will buy something. And if I don't, we're not afraid to take it back. I'll take it back and return it. Like that's not a big deal. But most of the time, we've gotten pretty good these days where if I'm in a store and I'm looking at something and I really, really want it, and I know that I like it better than what I've got back in the Airstream, um, I'm pretty much going to make the right decision at this point. And I know what I'm, kind of going to want.
I like what you mentioned about the idea that you have to make this decision based on space, because yeah, we've talked about on past shows, I'm sure, about about budgeting, but like, do you have enough money to make this purchase? But you're also, it's probably helping you stick to those guidelines a little when you're
Oh,
literally
yeah.
looking at, do I have enough space as well, right?
Yeah, well, totally. And again, it's the whole trade-offs. So not like, do we have enough space and do I like this better than what I already have? And a lot of times the answer is no, I don't. So I'm going to leave it. Even though I like it, I still would like what I currently have better.
You sort of mentioned your wife with the traveling physical therapist, right? That's what it
Yeah.
was.
So that's what she used to do. So she did that for about 8 months, and then she left that job to come work with me and freelance full time.
Okay. If we could jump back just a bit, can we go into a bit how you decided for your career how to make that change? Like I know you picked up some different freelancing, right? But how did that all come together to make that jump sort of from employment to self-employment?
Yeah. So the way I think about it is I'm a big long term thinker. And so
Mm.
I have a lot of ideas around where I want my life to go in the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. And so for me, I was working as a mechanical engineer. And now what I do has nothing to do at all with that old career. But here's how I made the jump. I knew that what I cared about was personal finance and money. And I wanted to figure out a way to work and do work in that industry and help people with their money because that was what I was passionate about and what I really wanted to spend my time doing. The way I think about it is the biggest problem in the world that I care the most about, that I feel passionate about helping, is like helping people get a handle on their money. So if this is the problem that I care about, now what I'm going to try and do is figure out, okay, is there jobs, are there skill sets that would allow me to work in that industry um, that I could learn? And what I found was all these bloggers and online entrepreneurs and podcasters and those types of people, While I eventually had some aspirations to do some of that, I didn't necessarily have the expertise yet. But what I did have is I was really good at learning. And this is where I took a step and said, okay, let's kind of take a self assessment and figure out my own strengths and weaknesses. And one of my strengths that I looked at was I'm a really good learner and I have a strong technical ability. And so what I figured out was I could spend some time on YouTube and Google and learn how to build a website and learn how to edit a podcast and learn, some of these skills. I don't edit podcasts, but just as an example of these skills that are in this realm. So that's kind of the way I broke it down. I knew the industry I wanted to be in, and I spent time going to all these different websites, looking at their careers pages, getting on their email list to try and see if I got an email that said, hey, we're hiring, and tried to understand what sorts of skills that these people were hiring. Yeah. And then I basically reverse engineered those skills to figure out how I could learn them and eventually become a freelancer for those people.
Okay. So that's the income side of it. How about the expense side? Did you save money by not paying rent and compared to the I guess the price of buying the Airstream plus any of the costs? How'd that work out?
Yeah. So most people will look at our lifestyle and go, wow, you must be saving a ton of money. And what I tell people is that we're not necessarily saving a lot.
Okay.
Comparatively. The biggest thing is that our expenses are not controllable. So, like some hard numbers, for example, we were spending around $1,200 a month on rent in Chattanooga, Tennessee for our apartment. The Airstream that we bought, we pay $500 a month for because we did take out a loan for that. Okay. And then now we have to pay campground fees. So depending on the level of luxury that the campground is, what time of year it is, and where you are located. If you're in a national park during the summer, you're going to pay a ton of money. If you're on the beach in Southern California, you're going to pay a lot of money. If you're in a rural field in South Carolina, you're going to pay a little bit of money. So comparatively, as an example, one of our favorite campgrounds that we love in South Carolina is $200 a month. So It's awesome. However, when we were traveling in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming around the national parks over the summer, we were averaging $1,200 a month for campground fees.
Oh, wow. So
you can see what a massive, right, the same as rent, right, plus Airstream payment. So, so what I tell people is that your expenses are really controllable. You can go to cheaper places. You can not travel as fast because gas will also eat you alive if you're not careful. And you can save a lot of money. But if you are traveling to the best, most luxurious RV parks in North America and you're moving really, really quickly and spending a lot on gas, then it'll cost you more. But I like it because it's flexible.
So with this idea of RV parks, do you sort of have a home base, like somewhere that you consider home kind of thing, even though you end up going all over the place?
Totally. Yeah. So for me and Hannah, like family is really important to us and they're a big part of our life and having good relationships with them. All of our family is located in Tennessee and Alabama. And luckily, they're all within about 3 hours of each other. So we've got a couple of campgrounds that are our favorites that are back home. So we'll come back there and stay for a couple months at a time to hang out near family and kind of get our bearings. And then we'll take off and go somewhere else for 3 or 4 months at a time. And we kind of go back and forth like that.
Do you kind of travel with the weather? I've heard this idea where if you're going to go to the northern states, you kind of wait till summer.
Yes, 100%. Like I love snowboarding and getting out in the winter, but I have absolutely no interest in living in a camper in the snow. So that introduces a whole new world of difficulty. So we actually went to Banff in Alberta last year, but we did it in the middle of July, which was much better than trying to go up there in the winter.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm just right near there, so if you ever come back again, come see me, and I'll take you in from the cold.
Oh, we will. We will.
Weather's a good point then, actually, because a lot of people listening to the show are going to be Canadian, and there's certainly a lot less options on how to avoid the snow. But they exist. You can sort of go to southern BC is normally a little warmer. Like you mentioned, though, even in the States, you'll probably pay for it. The RV parks there are probably more expensive, but so yeah, it's still applicable to Canadians. But yeah, I can't imagine, like you said, well, living in an RV is hard enough in my mind, but doing it in the winter sounds even worse.
And you can do it. I mean, plenty of people do it. It just requires that, and hey, the Canadians on the show, they probably know a lot more about battling that weather than I do. I'm from, Southeast states.
Yeah.
I don't do snow. So, when it gets cold, we go south.
Oh yeah. Like I know people that will camp in a tent in the winter. So people's opinions or thoughts on what's cold probably depends on where you are.
Absolutely.
I often see a bunch of RVs parked like at Walmart during the summer.
Yes.
Is this a thing? Is this allowed? How's that work?
Totally. So we stop in Walmarts all the time.
Okay.
Walmart actually is 100% okay with it. They know that you're going to probably come in and restock up on groceries while you're there. And so it's a win-win. And they have all this parking lot space overnight that goes unused. There's actually a couple different websites online that will let you know what Walmarts are okay with it and what aren't. As a general rule of thumb, most Walmarts are. But there are in some of the bigger cities, especially because of the homeless population, there's city ordinances now where you can't park overnight on commercial property. So you got to kind of check that and make sure you're not breaking the law. But right now in most Walmarts, Bass Pro Shops, Costco's, there's quite a few that are totally cool with it.
Is there sort of an unwritten rule, or maybe written, about how long you can do that for? Like, is this one night or when do you become kind of a squatter?
Yeah, it's definitely like a one night thing. Like it's you're supposed to kind of utilize it as, hey, we're trying to get from this city to that city. And it's, we just need a place to stop in between. So, even honestly, more than one night, it's like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But this interests me because I have very little experience in RVs, but one thing I'd like to do to try it out is possibly go coast to coast in Canada during the summer when the kids are off, kind of thing. And if I can stop in a Walmart for a night, if I'm only spending a night in every town, I could probably make that work all the way across.
Yeah, our very first trip we actually did without the RV. We just slept in the bed of our truck. And we did it in Walmart parking lots. We went from Tennessee to Colorado and back. We stayed at Walmarts almost every night. So you can totally do it.
And you said Costco's normally good for that too?
Yeah, most Costco's are good. Like I said, the Bass Pro Shops, they're the nicest. I like to stay there if we can find one.
Okay. Well, why are they the nicest?
The parking lot's just like you feel less, you feel safer. I'll say it that way. They're, just like generally speaking, you feel safer. They also have really good lighting. Like you just want to feel safe whenever you're staying out somewhere random in a city that you don't know anything about.
So Bass Pro is like the nice hotel of parking lots.
Totally. It's exactly right.
Okay. Speaking of this idea of trying it out, what if someone decides they just want to go all in and do what you're doing? Should they sort of have that test drive first of this sort of lifestyle change?
I think so. Absolutely. There's two things I'll say on that. So number one, you can absolutely test. There's like lots of companies now where you can just rent an RV for a week. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend doing that. It is expensive. It's going to feel expensive and like, waste. We could just buy our own and then you won't have to waste this money doing that. But I think it's worth it, especially if you're on the fence. Okay. The second thing I'll say is this is where the self-awareness piece comes into play. Hannah and I went to an RV entrepreneur conference earlier this year, and we had a blast. There was about 300 people there that were all RVers full-time and all working from their RV. And what we found that was a common theme is like these people are just chill people. Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to live in an RV full-time, you generally speaking are probably not a high-maintenance person. You're just laid back. You're kind of more go with the flow. Things go wrong and you just kind of roll with the punches. If that's your attitude in life in general, then yeah, you could probably buy an RV right now and go all in and not worry about it. But if you know, like internally that you maybe lean a little more high maintenance as a person, I would definitely rent one first and check it out because this lifestyle, things are going to go wrong and you just kind of got to roll with it.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts for myself is I hate to label myself high maintenance, but my office might be the size of your RV. So I think I'd start to feel a little closed in, but only in a way because in some ways you're less closed in when you can walk right out your door and
totally.
you're outdoors. there's got to be a freeing experience to that too, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the benefits that we love the most. It forces us to get outside and really interact with nature because you'll go stir crazy if you don't ever leave, right?
Yeah. Speaking of that, so you've got the four pets.
Yep.
How's it work with your wife? Do you guys get along well in these tight areas where you don't sort of have another room you can go to?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we've had fights. We've had, our fair share of fights, and it's been times that were really tough. And it is frustrating because there's no leaving, like you're here. And, I can throw a piece of paper and hit you no matter where you're at in the camper, like there's no getting away. I would say that we're very blessed in that 9 times out of 10, like we get along really well. We really like are a team in that way, and we just enjoy each other's company. So it works really well for us. Again, it's kind of one of a self-awareness piece, right? Like you got to know yourself and know what your needs are. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not always like unicorns and daisies out here. Like sometimes it's hard and you wish that you could just get in your car and go, or, have another room. So it kind of forces you to work things out that way.
Yeah, I guess you can use your vehicle as your quiet space.
Yeah, I'm going outside. Yeah,
I'm going to the other room. It's
you stay in there.
Yeah, it's a good point. You guys are probably in a good way being forced to deal with problems a lot more than where you can kind of just put it off and walk away. You really have to have a close relationship.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's also kind of like living in an apartment complex where the walls are thin. Like if you're fighting, everybody in the whole complex knows it. There's like an embarrassment factor. Yeah. If you're in an RV park, like there's no like storming out of the RV, slamming the door and like yelling back at someone. Like the whole park's going to hear you, So, you just got to, let's be an adult here and let's work this out.
Yeah. Otherwise the next day you guys just have to move on to another RV.
We got to go find a new city. We got to get out of here.
Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot on whether or not you're going to have children, but if you were to have children, how does that change things for you?
Yeah. There are people who full-time RV with kids. At this moment, we're saying that we're probably not going to so we want kids. We're going to have kids at some point in the next 3 to 5 years. We're still really young, so we feel like we've got lots of time. The most extreme example, there was a couple that we met at that summit that had 7 kids. So 9 people full time in a big fifth wheel. Now, To me, that's next level. I'm not about that life. So for us, we're currently planning to probably buy a house, settle down somewhere, then start a family. But we want to maintain the RV and keep it because, we see ourselves going on 6 and 8 and 10-week trips. And making that a big part of our life and the way we raise our family. But I don't know about full-time. I don't think that's for us.
Yeah, I could see doing it with young kids before they're in school, but otherwise you get into homeschooling and everything else, then you've got a whole new job.
Yep. And there's families that do it, and swear by it and love it. But, I think for us too, we're so close to our extended family and our parents and want our kids to grow up very close to their grandparents. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of also let's get a house and settle down near family and we can always take trips.
Yeah. So with this house being sort of part of the long range plan, are you saving up towards that goal right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we are currently saving up towards a house. To be perfectly honest, we feel very flexible on a lot. So we're saving that up, but we're thinking that depending on how long we go, we may end up buying a rental property first as like an investment and then eventually buy a house. So we're kind of playing it by ear. But we're saving towards a house. I just don't know if it's going to be a rental property yet or the one that we end up buying for us. So it feels like our life is still up in the air in terms of my dad is going to retire soon. Her dad's going to retire soon. We're not sure if our parents are going to move. So we're kind of trying to stay on wheels until we figure out where everybody else is going to settle down.
Yeah. You don't want to finally make that decision to buy a house and now you feel sort of trapped in it because you're totally not where the family is.
Exactly.
One more thing I wanted to run through with you was sort of, again, if someone wants to sort of go this direction, what are some of the problems with living in an RV? The first one that comes to my mind, just to lead it off, is I don't think I'd want to deal with all the sewage connections and everything like that.
It's so much fun. Yeah. So if you'll allow me to tell a quick story, the first night in our RV, we actually weren't spending the night to like in it. We were basically just testing it out. The goal was we're taking it to a mechanic over the weekend. We're going to see how things are going. So we get in the RV and I hook everything up and I hear this hissing noise. I don't understand what's going on. And I hear this noise. I hear it. And I walk over to the bathroom and it's louder. And I hear this hissing noise. And I open the bathroom door and I get in there and I hear this hissing noise even louder. And then I open the toilet up and I hear this hissing noise. It's louder. It's really strong. Feels like pressure's building. I get my head down near the toilet. I'm trying to look, see what's going on. Do I hear anything? I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on. I guess I'll just look in the toilet, see what's happening. So I press, in RVs, you have a lever that's like a foot pedal. I'm down on my knees. So I press it with my hand. My head is right over the toilet. And when I do that, I get a massive explosion. And I'm talking like literally, it was like out of a movie. It hits me in the face. It hits the walls, the RV. It hits the walls, the bathroom. Long story short, black tanks on the RV have a clean out. And so I accidentally hooked our water hose up to the clean out and I was filling up the black tank with water instead of actually hooking up to our normal water that gives us like sinks and showers and things like that. And because I was not dumping at that time, it had nowhere to go except out the toilet.
Wow.
I share that story to go back to, you got to be a chill individual. You got to be the kind of person that rolls with the punches.
I think if the toilet exploded in my face on the first night, I'd be like, we're done. We're selling this. We're staying home.
Yeah. To me, though, it was like, hey, we got the worst out of the way. Like it can only go up from here, right? Like it can only get better. So, there's lots of things like that. Things constantly break. And I say constantly, but just things break and you get, broken down on the side of the road and you need to learn how to, fix something electrical. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos on how to do stuff. So that honestly, it goes back to what I said earlier. Like if you're a laid back person and willing to learn and just invest some time, then you can get over that. Because to me, the benefits of the freedom, the flexibility, the travel, the seeing all of this country and the beautiful parts of all the beautiful parts that we can drive to basically far outweigh the hassles for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really any of the problems you're experiencing in RV doesn't sound all that different from home ownership. We had our furnace go out during our nice cold winters with young children. And it was not a good scene having to get someone in middle of the night and we've got our fireplace on because it was the only source of heat. So it happens whether you're in an RV or a house, I guess.
Yeah. Same thing. So,
okay. Well, thanks for being on the show. Can you let everyone know where they can find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if they're interested in learning more about me, just type in Nick True or Mapped Out Money into YouTube. That's kind of our home base. And you'll be able to see our videos there. And I've got a handful of videos on RV life that maybe you'll find interesting.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for the look into your RV lifestyle, Nick. You can find the show notes for this episode at MapleMoney.com/Nick True. And thanks to you for listening each week. The show wouldn't exist without people like you tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, please head over to MapleMoney.com/show and share your favorite episode on social media. Next week, Andy Hill joins us, and we'll be chatting about how to get your spouse and kids on board with the changes you want to make towards achieving financial independence. See you next week.